Welcome to Hilary Topper On Air, the podcast you can't afford to miss.
Are you a new or seasoned runner, cyclist, or swimmer? Do you have a coach, or are you thinking about hiring one for a potential triathlon? Do you wonder if it's worth the investment? I'm Hilary Topper, and this is Hilary Topper On Air. Today, I'm excited to be speaking with Tim Delss. He's the owner and head triathlon coach at CB Multisport. And without further ado, welcome Tim to the show.
Thank you for having me, Hilary.
So tell me, Coach Tim, give me a little bit about your background and yourself and how you actually got into all of this.
Sure. So I have been participating in organized sports since I was 5 years old. I did soccer, football, baseball, lacrosse, all the sports that all the kids play during my school years. And when I was post-high school, I had a beat-up body and couldn't really do a whole lot, so I got away from it. And then after a couple of surgeries and some intense physical therapy, I was able to get back to cycling, start cycling for exercise, just to get outside. And once I got on a bike, I was pretty much hooked with endurance sports. So I started riding, and then I started running again. Jumped into a 5K and with a friend and had a great time, and then it was just an avalanche after that of moving up and running distances, and then wanted to try something new. So I looked into triathlon and went and tried out a try and had a ball, and there's been no turning back since.
It's awesome. So what do you think about coaching? I mean, what is it that you like about coaching?
When I was younger, I was extremely competitive. The typical type A athlete that everybody knows nowadays as adults. And while it was always good to chase goals and dreams and to try to do things, it takes some of the shine off the sports because you get too worried about the result. And as I became better, I saw a pretty good runner and a pretty good cyclist, and that I started just kind of providing some tips and tricks and directing friends. And I found that seeing them succeed provided a totally different response for me emotionally than my own accomplishments or failures or things like that. I just really was pulled to helping someone else achieve a dream or a goal or a life ambition. There was just much more fulfillment for me there than in my own personal achievements.
And so give me an example of someone maybe who started out and did something really amazing.
Yeah, so I'm lucky that I've worked with all different levels of athletes, from first-timers to world championship qualifiers. And for the people that are at the front of the pack, it's kind of business as usual. You're still striving and making changes and goals, and seeing them succeed is great, but it's also kind of expected. But when you get someone who isn't one of those people, the feeling is totally different. I had a client in 2014. Her name was Beth. She was local athlete here in Maryland with me. I'd known her for years. We're in the same tri club. Back of the pack athlete, just did it for fun, and had decided that she wanted to tap on Ironman. And she chose Ironman Lake Placid because of the venue up there. And so we got to work on coaching. She had a bunch of dietary restrictions. She had thyroid issues, which made her tired a lot and made her weight fluctuate up and down like crazy if she didn't keep everything in line. And her goal was just to get to the finish line. You know, she was chasing midnight.
Mm-hmm.
And so we worked for about a year, and, you know, we stabilized the thyroid issue, you know, with help from her doctors. And we played and tweaked and changed, and the schedule was always moving depending on what was going on. And we got there, and she beat midnight by 6 minutes. You know, she finished at 11:54.
Wow.
And yeah, I was getting worried about her, so I started walking out on the course to look for her. And I found her, and she was walking and hobbling, and she had, you know, some really bad blisters on her feet from being on her feet for so long and whatnot. And it was just kind of a shout and a cheer, and, you know, you're almost there. And, you know, and she was able to kind of correct herself mentally and push like the last 4 miles, and, you know, made it by a handful of minutes. And it was, for me, standing in the Fisher's Oval there that close to midnight with that kind of a crowd and seeing her achieve what was a life goal for her. You know, at that point there was no turning back for me as a coach. It was, this is all I want to do, instead of I just want to help my friend.
Awesome.
You know,
That is such a cool story. So tell my listeners, in case they don't know, what exactly an Ironman is.
Yeah, so an Ironman is a triathlon, and there are many distances and variations you can do. But Ironman, the distance is considered the top tier, you know, what everybody wants and strives for. It consists of a 2.4 mile swim, a 112 mile bike ride, and then you run a marathon, which is 26.2 miles. So the whole race is 140.6 miles, and you have 17 hours to do it. And so they have them all over the world in different, you know, areas, and some swims are in lakes, some are in oceans, some are in rivers. You know, the Lake Placid, for example, is a mountain-fed lake.
Mm-hmm.
The bike course is through the valleys and the foothills of the Adirondack Mountains. You know, so there's venues all over the world, and they range in difficulty depending, you know, obviously on where the courses are. But that's kind of staple distance that everybody sees as the top pecking order, so to speak.
Huh. That is so incredible. So she finished it within the time limit, and that must have been an amazing experience for both you and her. So congratulations for that. So
it was an adventure for sure.
Yeah. So talk to me a little bit about your business, CB Multisport. Do you only work with athletes who are doing Ironman events, or can you kind of talk a little bit about that?
Sure. CB Multisport was kind of a product of, I was helping friends, and they were enjoying, you know, their different varying levels of success depending on what they were trying to do. And eventually I got to a point where I would realize that I was working with so many people that I should probably consider paying taxes. So I, you know, formed an LLC just to kind of make sure paperwork was in order and everything was right. And that was just kind of where I was going to leave it, and it was going to be a hobby. But then friends started referring other people and word of mouth, and it started to grow quickly. And I realized maybe this was something that I could do because the want, the demand was there. So I work with all levels of athletes. For instance, I've worked with people who wanted to do a couch to 5K type, wanted to get active, all the way up, like I said, world championship qualifying triathletes and Ironman distance. I don't really care what distance somebody wants to do because I don't really think that is important. There's so much emphasis put on like the marathon distance or the Ironman triathlon distance and as being the hardest, that there is to do. And while they certainly have their own challenges, that doesn't make doing a 5K less important or less impressive. I personally suffer way more at 5K than I do in like Ironman, because they're just totally different events. Mm-hmm. So I don't limit people by what distance they want to do or what their ability is. I care more that they have a good mindset, that they're coming in to learn and that they're coming to have fun, because for all of us, this is really just a hobby. We're not being paid to compete, so it shouldn't be an all-consuming thing that you take super seriously, because you still need to have fun and enjoy the process, or you're not going to stick around. So that's kind of the way that I've structured and built my business, is around the experience and not just the end result.
So somebody comes to you and they're an entrepreneur, maybe they have their own business, they're very busy. How do you help them juggle getting everything in? Maybe they have kids, maybe they, have their own business, that type of thing. What do you say to them, or how do you structure them to be able to do any kind of an event with all of these other responsibilities?
Sure. So what I tell people, usually I like to, if it's someone who's local or regional, I would arrange, a face-to-face sit-down meeting to kind of talk about goals and where they want to go. If not, then by phone or by Skype or whatever is the easiest media for them to use. And the first thing that we do is we try to establish what I call them what their limiters are. And for most people, it is time. Whether the kids have sports, or like they're an entrepreneur, or maybe they have to travel for work, whatever it is, we have to figure out what those limiters are. Because you can't, as a coach, you can't stick to one plan. There is no one plan or one template that works. There are certainly rules that can apply across the board, but you have to be flexible. So once we determine what their limiters are and what the parameters are, then we can start to set goals. If you have a Super Bowl and you want to qualify for the Ironman World Championships, for example, well, that takes a lot of time just to train. So does your time allow that? Or do we maybe need to say we need to temper the expectation and make it a longer process? No plans are ever set in stone. I have athletes that train 5 to 6 hours a week, and I have athletes that train 20 plus hours a week.
Wow.
It all depends on what their life will allow. So we figure out the limiters, and then I set the basis of their training plan. That And then usually we spend the first 4 weeks or so tweaking and adjusting and massaging the plan to make sure that it fits in their life so that they can get the most out of the time that they do have.
Wow. Well, before we move on, I just want to thank our sponsors. Very appreciative of their support. And they are the Russo Law Group, MedPro, once again, Nut Butter, and Fortune Fine Jewelry. So special thanks to the sponsors. And back to Tim Dells of CB Multisport. So Tim, tell us a little bit about what we should look for if we were to hire a coach. Are there any tips and strategies that you would offer our listeners?
Yeah, absolutely.